Happy New Year! My name is Kendyl Redding, and I'm the Family Consumer Sciences Agent in Powell County, and welcome to Cooking Through the Calendar. So we're going to be going through our 2023 recipe calendar each month and cooking each recipe together. So we are starting with the January recipe, the smoky black eyed peas in the slow cooker. At the end of the video, I will leave a link to a survey down below, and you can let me know what you think of the recipe, if you tried it, or if you made any changes to it. So you can find that survey linked in the comments below. So let's get started with the ingredients. Okay, so just to go over some of the ingredients, the main ingredient here are black eyed peas. So this is 1 pound of dried black eyed peas. Anytime you're dealing with dried beans and peas, you want to go through and kind of sort through and find any beans that may not look so great, or sometimes there's rocks or dirt claws in here. So you want to go through and pick those out, and then of course rinse them before you use them. So I have 1 pound of black eyed peas ready to go here. And then to this, we're also going to be adding 1 turkey sausage rope. This is going to add a little bit of extra flavor, kind of gives that smoky flavor, as well as some extra protein to this recipe. And then for some added flavor, we're going to cut a whole onion. We're going to be adding a bell pepper, jalapeno for some spice, and some garlic. And then for our spices, we're going to be using a Cajun spice. And if you don't have Cajun seasoning, you can make your own by using a few pantry ingredients, which I'll touch on later. And then we're also going to be adding a couple of dried bay leaves. So the first thing that we're going to do is add our black eyed peas to the slow cooker. Our 1 pound of black eyed peas straight into our crock pot here. And then next we're going to do some chopping. So we'll start with our onion here. So onions, if you're doing this with your family, onions is a really good time to practice your knife skills, especially with kids. Maybe if you have some older kids in the home, you can have them practice by chopping onions. So anytime I teach knife skills, I always use onions because they are just a really good vegetable to practice on. So we have our nice sharp knife here. So some proper knife skills. We want to hold our knife by pinching the back of the blade with our pointer finger and our thumb. And then you wrap your other 3 fingers around the handle. So we're going to hold our onion here. We've got our fingers tucked in for safety. And then we're going to peel back the first layer and discard that. Will look something like that. And then we're going to be dicing this. It doesn't have to be perfect because they're all going to be put together. But we do want to have a consistent dice because we want our onion to all cook at the same rate. So my favorite way to chop an onion when I'm dicing them is to, so notice I kept the root in on the onion. So that's going to be like a handle. So usually what I do is I go through and I cut along the onion, but I don't cut all the way through. And then so you can kind of see it's almost like an accordion, but still attached to the bottom. And then you will just go through the opposite direction and make your slices. You can see it makes kind of all the same size pieces. This is a simple way to chop an onion, although there are all kinds of other ways to do it too. So we're just going to finish chopping up our onion, and then we're going to add that to our slow cooker. So again, we're just going to go through, make our slices all the way across, keeping the bottom intact. Go through the opposite direction. And then we have a nice even dice here. So we're going to add that to our slow cooker. And then next we're going to chop our bell pepper. So you can use any color bell pepper. I have a red one. And I'll show you an easy way to do it without getting the seeds everywhere. So we're gonna start by cutting the top of our pepper. And then we're also gonna flip it over and cut the bottom off. And hang on to those. So you can see this is the middle where all the seeds are and they're kind of connected by this membrane. So we're gonna make a slice to cut through one section. And then you can kind of use your knife in here and cut along those sections until it's all separated and you can just pull the seeds out. And that really helps keep from getting the seeds everywhere. And then you have this one piece and then you can kind of cut it into more manageable sizes for chopping and cut it in whatever size you need it. So in this case, we're going to be, again, doing a dice. So I'm just going to cut it into strips first. And then we'll go back through and do our dice. And again, just like the onion, this doesn't have to be precise and perfect because it's all going to be cooking in the slow cooker. So I did save the tops and bottom because we can still use those pieces. So the top that we cut off, you can just pop that stem off. And then all of this is usable. The same with the bottom. So we're going to dice that up as well. This way you're able to use the entire pepper without wasting any of it. This recipe calls for only half of the bell pepper, but since I'm chopping a whole bell pepper, I think I'll just add the whole thing in there. It won't hurt anything. Here's our bell pepper. We're going to throw that in with everything else in the slow cooker. And then the last thing, or actually second to last thing, we're going to start with our jalapeno. So the recipe says to de-seed the jalapeno, and that's just going to remove a lot of the spiciness because most of the spiciness is in the seeds. But if you like spicy, then you can leave the seeds in, or some of the seeds, whatever your preference is. Okay, so I'm gonna use gloves to chop this jalapeno, but I don't get any of that on my skin. So first thing I'm gonna do is chop the stem off, and then I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to use a spoon to kind of scrape those seeds out and this membrane. Also use a knife, but I find that the spoon is a bit easier. Makes a little bit less of a mess. Okay, so then we're going to, just like our bell pepper, we're going to chop this into smaller pieces, and then we'll add this to our slow cooker. And if you want to, you can save some raw jalapeno to chop it at the end, or you can do what I'm going to do and just add the entire pepper. And again, if you do like spicy, you can leave some of those seeds in there. And that will add some extra spice. We'll add that to our slow cooker. And last, we're going to chop up our garlic. So we've got 2 cloves here. And the easiest way I find to chop garlic, fresh garlic, is to use your knife and the palm of your hand and just press on garlic, and that will kind of make the skin separate and it'll make it easier to peel off. This can be a fun thing for kids to do to help you with by peeling that garlic if you're using fresh. Sometimes it's really stubborn, so another thing you can do is cut the end of it off, but not all the way, kind of like our onion, and then it should just peel it off with the stem. So again, just use the back of or the side of your knife, your palm, press down, and that skin will separate. And then once you have it peeled, you're just going to cut the stem off. And you're just going to go through and finely chop that. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can use the jarred minced garlic, or you can substitute with garlic powder. So usually about, I think, half a teaspoon of garlic powder is the same as one fresh clove. So in this case, we would use an entire teaspoon of garlic powder. So again, just kind of rough chop. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, now we're going to add that to our slow cooker. And then last, we're going to do our spices. So we're going to use 2 dried bay leaves. So these are dried and you add them whole. One thing about bay leaves though is they're going to cook in there with everything, but before you serve this, you're going to want to fish these out because they're pretty brittle and you can't, they're very fibrous, you don't want to eat these. So make sure to fish these out. We'll add that in, and then last we're going to do our Cajun seasoning. So again, this Cajun seasoning, it's a blend of chili powder, dried thyme, and cayenne pepper. So if you can't find this, you can make your own blend of Cajun seasonings with probably spices you already have in your pantry. So we're going to add about half a teaspoon of this. Okay, and then our very last ingredient is going to be our turkey sausage. So we're just going to slice this into rounds, or you can chop it really however you want to do it. It's up to you. I'm just going to go through and make some slices. Again, this is going to add that smoky flavor. It's also going to add some extra protein. So we'll go ahead and add this to our crock pot. And then we're just going to cover all of that with about 7 cups of water. And then this is going to sit in the slow cooker for about 5 hours on high. And then you have your complete meal. So in our calendar here, there are some recommendations for making complete meals with our recipes. So when you're serving this, you can serve it with brown rice. You can have it kind of like a soup style with cornbread. It's really up to you. But this is a great winter recipe. It's very low cost with our dried beans. So those can be very economical, easy to store in your pantry. So a good staple meal to have. Like I said, if you will try this recipe, let me know what you think. Follow the link below for the survey and leave me your feedback. I will see you in February for our next recipe.